The last of our four functions that we have in management is controlling. Sometimes this one gets overlooked by a lot of people that are very charismatic. It's a matter of I preach the gospel of corporation, so go out there and do as I say. In the process, you're out there doing the work, but you forget to go back and check up on people. Checking up on people isn't a bad thing. One time I walked into my dentist's office. He's leaning up against the wall and he's listening, and I'm watching him. And he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm listening." I said, "Listening to who?" He says, "I told all the hygienists I want them to talk about this aspect. It's about screening underneath the tongue for tongue cancer." He says, "It's pretty rare, but I don't want us ever to have that." I says, "Are you sure this is a good thing to do?" He says, "Did you check when you walked in the door?" He says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Did you check whose name is on the door?" My name is on the door. So yes, it's always appropriate for me to make certain that the people that work for me sit on do the things I expect them to do. I don't know how that's wrong. It makes sense at first. You think about he's invading the privacy between the dental hygienist and the customer, except that's his customer, his employee, and he sets the rules. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with checking on that? There's nothing. So the aspect of measuring performance related to planned objectives is a big thing. I had a deal the other day with somebody where they weren't doing their job. I talked to the supervisor. The supervisor says, "You know what? This is the second time you had a concern. I'm going to probably make a change. Is that okay with you?" "Oh, yeah, it's no big deal. Whatever it takes. I think we have a good relationship. So let's handle it." You know what? Sometimes you need to go back and check and make sure everybody's on the same page. And it's never wrong to do that. Get the expectations down and take corrective action to make certain that the expectations are done. A lot of times, people don't know. Sometimes you didn't give them clear enough direction. And in my opinion, I think the best way to control is actually at the very beginning of their employment. It's called orientation. Tell them what you want them to do. I don't know of any job where I ever walked into that I've been given a solid orientation as to what my job is supposed to be doing and what's expected of me. Never in all my career. And I'll bet you probably know that I look like I'm in my 20s. I'm probably not. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but the reality is it really comes down to the fact that get the expectations out of the way in the orientation and then check on them a couple of weeks later and check on them. The best orientations are a constant check on the first 3 months of their employment. It works an awful lot. Here you sit down the control process, establish the standards. A lot of times those standards are sitting right there in their job description. You show them all the different ropes, get it over there, monitor, record the performance, compare the results against the standards, communicate the results, and if needed, take corrective action. If not, give them some praise. Okay, and then, but sometimes you got to go back and double check: are the standards realistic? So you have this constant cycle, and you're going back to check to see that everybody's doing the right work. One time, I had one of the most thankless jobs you could ever have. I would never recommend that you ever take it. I was the internal auditor. It was one of those awful things. You would walk into the business office of a college, and all of a sudden, everybody go quiet. It was like that somebody walked into the middle of an ice storm. "Oh, he's here. Oh, he's going to audit. I want to check your petty cash. It's all balanced. That's good. I'm going to check your petty cash. It's all there." You count it, and they're $15.22 short. Somebody goes in their purse and they start pulling out the money. I that is one of these things of, okay, what have you been doing? Well, so and so needed this or whatever, or they're short. Those things actually happen where people do things. And one time, one college, they had 17 different revenue streams. I had to shrink it down to 9 revenue streams for better control. And all of a sudden, miraculously, we made more money. Part of this thing is going back and double checking the process and everything else, where you go back and check the process, see if everything's working, because sometimes people get sloppy, they get lazy, or they become human. So, how do you go about doing that? Just go back and double check, lay out the expectations, make certain they're performing up to the expectations. The micromanager, you don't want to go too far over here. Okay. Are there initiatives that you've got so focused on the day-to-day thing that you forget about the big picture over here? Do you check on employees for quality control? Do you breathe down their neck? Okay, that could be a problem. Okay, do you check them throughout the day? "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing?" There's people that will talk later on about the aspect of the theory X versus theory Y. Do you hate brainstorming sessions because they're useless and people toss out stupid ideas? Actually, brainstorming is about stupid ideas because some of the stupid ones end up being the best ones. Do you ever rarely take vacations because you're so focused on the work? "I need to do my job, my job, my job." You do your job, your job. Those things drive people crazy. Is there a lot of turnover? That's probably the biggest thing to indicate that. So whenever you're working, you're going to have two kinds of customers. You're going to have the external customer and the internal customer. Now, human resources, who are your customers? In human resources, you have these applicants coming into the organization. You also have the people that are hiring them. You also have the ones that have the employees here for 14 years that need to have some disciplinary action, need to work with them. You have some who have the insurance blew up on them and everything else, and they have this family crisis because they needed to have the insurance at the right time and the insurance fell apart. Sometimes your customers, you need to pay attention to this group a lot more than this group over here. Almost everybody will have these two groups of customers. Even in retail, you'll have two different groups of customers. You're going to have your boss, the internal customer, who you better make certain is happy. And you also have the customer you're supposed to be servicing that comes in to purchase the items or purchase the service. So pay attention to your customers as to who they are. Really, the controlling aspect of it, autocratic, participative, whatever, you have the different types of leadership. And we're going to dive more into the aspect of power to close out this chapter. Take care and watch your controls. Make sure they're fair and just all the time because people watch those probably more than anything else because that's how you treat people well or sometimes not so well. Take care.